The rain hammers Seoul's glass towers like bullets against armor, but down here in the alleyways behind Gangnam Station, it just sounds like the world ending. Han Jun-seok pulls the drenched hoodie tighter around his face, feeling the 36-year-old ache in his bones that comes from 3 days sleeping on concrete. His experiment is working too well. Every passerby sees exactly what he designed them to see. Nothing. Excuse me. The voice cuts through the rain in accented Korean, hesitant but warm. American, maybe. He doesn't look up. In 72 hours of this performance, exactly 0 people have stopped. Sir? Are you okay? Jun-seok's eyes find her ankles first, designer boots, but not the kind bought to impress. Practical. Her jeans are soaked through, and when he raises his head, her dark face is creased with genuine concern. She's crouched now, close enough that he can smell her perfume mixing with rain and street grime. Did you eat today? She asks in careful Korean, then switches to English. Food. Have you eaten? The question hits harder than the cold. When did anyone last ask him about eating? Not dining or networking or closing deals. His throat works around words that won't come. She mistakes his silence for language barriers and pulls out her phone, fingers flying over translation apps. Wait, he says quietly, and she freezes. I speak English. Relief floods her face. Oh, thank God. I'm Lorraine. I was trying to find the last train to Itaewon, but... She gestures helplessly at the rain. This seemed more important. More important. Jun-seok studies her face, searching for the calculation he's learned to expect from everyone. The angle, the pitch, the way people position themselves around power. But her eyes hold only the kind of tired compassion that comes from someone who's been hungry herself. I'm Mr. Park, he says, choosing the most common Korean surname. It feels like putting on another mask, but somehow also like taking one off. Mr. Park, she repeats, testing the sounds. Are you from Seoul? He nods, not trusting his voice. She's digging through her purse now, pulling out a container of kimbap that looks homemade, probably her dinner. The sight of it makes his stomach clench. Not from hunger, but from the realization that he hasn't eaten simple food like this in decades. Please, she says, offering the container. I bought too much anyway. It's a lie. He can see from the careful way she's portioned it that this was meant to be a meal, not a snack. But she's extending it like it's nothing, like feeding strangers is what people do. When did he stop believing people like this existed? His hands shake slightly as he accepts the plastic container. From cold, he tells himself, not from whatever this feeling is that's crawling up his throat. The kimbap is still warm, store-bought, but somehow perfect. When he looks up to thank her, she's shrugging out of her coat. I have a hotel room, she says, misreading his expression. I mean, you need this more than I do. The coat settles over his shoulders like a weight he's forgotten how to carry. The weight of being cared for by a stranger who expects nothing back. I can't take your coat, he says. But she's already standing, already stepping back into the rain like this. Transaction was always inevitable. Keep it dry for me, she says with a smile that transforms her whole face. Maybe I'll see you around. She's 3 steps away when she turns back. Mr. Park? You matter, okay? Whatever's happening in your life, you matter. Then she's gone, disappearing into the neon-washed night like some impossible angel, leaving Jun-seok sitting in an alley wearing a stranger's kindness and wondering when he became someone who needed to be reminded that he was human. But what she doesn't know is that she just gave her coat to the man who owns half the buildings around them. And her simple act of humanity is about to turn both their worlds completely upside down. When you think you know what matters in life, sometimes a stranger's kindness shows you just how lost you really were. If you're ready to see what happens when billion-dollar empires collide with genuine human compassion, you won't want to miss what comes next. Subscribe to make sure you catch every twist in this story that proves love really can change everything. So Min's coffee goes cold as she stares at the phone screen, her stylus frozen halfway through today's media monitoring notes. The video has been playing on loop for 10 minutes now, and each time she watches it, the impossible becomes more certain. Boss? She knocks on the mahogany door of Han Jun-seok's corner office, but there's no answer. Of course there isn't. He's been conducting field research for the past 4 days, whatever that means. Boss, I really need to speak with you. The silence from inside is telling. So Min has worked as Jun-seok's communications advisor for 3 years, long enough to recognize his patterns. When he goes dark like this, he's either orchestrating a major acquisition or planning something that would give the board nightmares. Her tablet buzzes with another notification. The video, titled Dignity on Seoul Streets, Tourist Shows Us How It's Done, has jumped from 50,000 views to 200,000 in the past hour. Korean news outlets are picking it up. International blogs are translating it, and at the center of it all is a figure in a rain-soaked hoodie that she would recognize anywhere, despite the careful choreography of his posture. So Min pulls up the company's internal security footage from 3 days ago. There's Jun-seok leaving through the executive parking garage at 11:47 p.m., wearing a hoodie she's never seen before. The timestamp matches perfectly with when this Mr. Park would have started his apparent residency in Gangnam's alleyways. Her phone rings. Director Kang's name flashes across the screen, and So-min's stomach drops. Have you seen it? Kang's voice is sharp with excitement, the kind that usually precedes ethically questionable marketing strategies. The homeless video? Yes, sir, but this is perfect. Hansong Group needs to capitalize on this immediately. Korean netizens are calling this American woman a hero, saying she's showing us how to treat our most vulnerable citizens. We need to find her, bring her in for a partnership. Think of the optics, international collaboration on social responsibility. So Min watches the video again, focusing on the woman this time. Lorraine Matthews, according to the Korean subtitles someone has added. The way she moves, the careful respect in her Korean pronunciation, the natural ease with which she treats the homeless man like a human being, rather than a social problem to be solved. Sir, what if we can't find her? She might have already left Seoul. Then we make sure she comes back. Offer her a consultation contract, something with Hansong's community outreach division. The board loves this kind of positive international attention. After Kang hangs up, So-min stares at her reflection in the black tablet screen. 3 years of watching Jun-seok navigate the corporate world has taught her to recognize the signs when he's operating in the shadows. The question is whether this homeless experiment is another one of his calculated business moves, or if something else is happening. She pulls up Lorraine Matthews' social media profiles, cross-referenced from the video comments. Museum experience designer from Chicago, currently traveling through Asia, documenting authentic human spaces. Her Instagram is filled with photos of local markets, small cafes, community gathering spots, places where real people live real lives. The kind of places Han Jun-seok hasn't visited since he was a child. So Min's phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Emergency board meeting scheduled for tomorrow 9 a.m. All communication staff required. HJS. Her blood chills. Han Jun-seok never texts from unknown numbers unless something has gone very, very wrong. But as she watches the video one more time, studying the careful way Mr. Park accepts the coat like he's learning how to be human again, she realizes that maybe something has gone very, very right. The only question is whether the most powerful man in Korean tech can survive becoming the most viral homeless person on the internet, especially when he doesn't know his guardian angel is about to be dragged into the spotlight with him. Lorraine Matthews discovers she's famous while standing in line for coffee at a Hongdae cafe, jet lag still dragging at her consciousness. The barista keeps glancing between her face and his phone screen, whispering in rapid Korean to his coworker. "Excuse me," he says in careful English. "Are you the lady from the video?" "What video?" But even as she asks, Lorraine feels the familiar weight of recognition settling around her. The way conversations pause when she passes, the phone cameras that seem to follow her movement. She's been in Seoul for 2 weeks documenting community spaces for her research on authentic human connection in urban environments. She hasn't posted anything viral worthy. The barista turns his phone around, and Lorraine watches herself in the rain-soaked alley, extending her coat to Mr. Park. The video has Korean subtitles, English subtitles, and a comment thread that seems to stretch into infinity. "Oh my God," she whispers. "You're very kind," the barista says, beaming. "Very, how do you say, human." Many Koreans are sharing this, saying we should learn from you. Lorraine accepts her Americano with shaking hands, mind racing. She's built her career on understanding how spaces shape human behavior, how design can encourage authentic connection. But she never wanted to become the subject of that connection herself. Her phone has been buzzing all morning with notifications she's been ignoring. Now she scrolls through them with growing alarm. Friend requests from Korean strangers, interview requests from news outlets, even a formal email from someone claiming to represent Hansong Group. The Hansong email is written in perfect English, but with the careful formality that screams corporate translation. "Ms. Matthews, your recent demonstration of cross-cultural compassion aligns perfectly with Hansong Group's commitment to community responsibility. We would be honored to discuss potential collaboration opportunities." Lorraine laughs, but it sounds hollow in the noisy cafe. Potential collaboration opportunities. As if her moment of basic human decency was an audition for corporate sponsorship. She thinks about Mr. Park, about the way his eyes had held such careful intelligence despite his obvious exhaustion. There had been something almost familiar in his bearing, the way he'd accepted her coat like someone unaccustomed to charity, but too tired to refuse it. She'd checked the alley twice since that night, hoping to see him again, to know he was okay. Her phone rings. The number has a US country code, and when she answers, her sister Maya's voice floods through the speaker. "Lorraine Elizabeth Matthews? What the hell is going on in Seoul? Mom just sent me a video of you giving your coat to some homeless guy, and apparently half of Korea thinks you're some kind of saint." "It's not like that," Lorraine says, but she's watching the cafe patrons around her, noting how many are stealing glances at her phone screen, at her face. He looked cold. "Baby girl, I've seen the comments. They're calling you the foreign angel, and proof that Americans can have hearts. This is about to get very big or very weird, and knowing you, probably both." Lorraine closes her eyes, remembering the weight of Mr. Park's gratitude, the careful way he'd said her name like he was testing foreign sounds. She'd connected with his humanity in that moment, and now the internet was turning it into a performance. "Maya, what if I can't find him again? What if all this attention scares him away? Then you figure out what you're really trying to accomplish here. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you accidentally became the face of something bigger than one coat in the rain." After Maya hangs up, Lorraine sits in the cafe watching the video of herself, trying to understand how a moment of instinct became a movement she never asked to lead. But as she studies Mr. Park's face in the grainy footage, she sees something the commenters seem to have missed. The way he watches her with the careful attention of someone accustomed to reading people, analyzing motivations. Almost like someone who spends his days evaluating human behavior for a living. The thought makes her stomach twist with possibility, but before she can examine it further, her phone buzzes with another message from Hansong Group. "Ms. Matthews, we understand you may be concerned about Mr. Park's well-being. We would like to help you find him." And suddenly, Lorraine realizes that her accidental fame might be the key to something more important than viral videos. It might be the way back to the man whose humanity reminded her why she does the work she does. Han Jun-seok stands in the marble lobby of Hansong Tower at 6 a.m., watching security footage of Lorraine Matthews entering the building on 12 different screens. She moves with the careful confidence of someone who's spent years navigating unfamiliar spaces, but he can see the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers clutch her design portfolio like armor. For the past week, he's been living a double life that would make his board of directors call for psychiatric evaluation. By day, he's been Mr. Park, haunting the alleys and shelters of Gangnam, learning to be invisible. By night, he returns to his penthouse to plan the most elaborate deception of his career, convincing Lorraine Matthews that Han Jun-seok and Mr. Park are two different people. She's in conference room A, So-min reports, appearing beside him like a guilty conscience. I've briefed her on our community outreach initiatives, but sir, I have to ask, what exactly is the endgame here? Junseok straightens his tie, checking his reflection in the polished steel elevator doors. Gone is the tired vulnerability of Mr. Park. In its place is the calculated authority that built an empire. The endgame is understanding what authentic human connection looks like before we try to monetize it. By lying to the woman who showed you authentic human connection? The question hits harder than intended. For 7 days, he's been replaying that moment in the rain. The weight of her coat, the simplicity of shared kimbap, the way she'd looked at him like his existence mattered. No one has looked at Han Jun-seok like that in decades. Everyone sees the net worth, the power, the carefully constructed public persona. I'm not lying, he says as the elevator climbs toward conference room A. I'm translating. Into what language? Before he can answer, the elevator opens. And there she is. Lorraine Matthews looks smaller in the corporate setting, but no less formidable. She's studying the abstract art on the conference room walls with the analytical eye of someone who understands how spaces communicate power. When she turns to greet him, her smile is professional, but guarded. Ms. Matthews, I'm Han Jun-seok, CEO of Hanseong Group. Thank you for taking this meeting. She shakes his hand, and for a moment, he wonders if she'll recognize something. The timbre of his voice, perhaps, or the way his eyes had memorized her face in that alley. But she shows no sign of recognition, only the careful attention of someone accustomed to reading rooms full of powerful men. Mr. Han, she says, testing his name. I have to admit, I'm curious about this collaboration opportunity. Your email mentioned helping find the man from the video. Among other things, yes. We believe your approach to human dignity could inform our corporate social responsibility initiatives. But first, perhaps you could share more about your interaction with Mr. Park, was it? The name sits strangely in his mouth, this fiction he's created to bridge two versions of himself. Lorraine's expression softens immediately, and he recognizes the look. It's the same concerned compassion she'd shown in the rain. He was tired, she says simply. Not just physically, but spiritually, I think. Like someone who'd been invisible for too long. The accuracy of her observation makes him want to confess everything. Instead, he nods professionally. Our research suggests that homelessness in Seoul is often compounded by social invisibility. We'd like to create programs that address both the practical and emotional needs of displaced individuals. That's admirable, Lorraine says, but he can hear the skepticism. Though I have to ask, why bring in an American consultant? Surely Korean social workers understand the local context better. Sometimes an outside perspective reveals blind spots, he says, which is true enough to feel honest. Your video has sparked conversations that Korean initiatives haven't managed to generate. They talk for an hour about community design, about creating spaces that foster dignity rather than dependence. Lorraine's passion transforms her, erasing the professional distance, revealing the woman who stops for strangers in the rain. Jun-seok finds himself leaning forward, genuinely engaged in ways that have nothing to do with quarterly reports or market positioning. There's something else, he says as the meeting winds down. We've been unable to locate Mr. Park for follow-up support. Given your connection with him, would you be interested in helping us with outreach? You want me to find him? Lorraine's eyes brighten with interest. I've been looking for him myself. I worry. What do you worry about? That the attention from the video might have driven him further underground. Sometimes visibility can be another kind of trap. Her insight cuts through him like surgical steel. She understands on some intuitive level exactly what he's wrestling with, the weight of being seen, the terror of being known. We have a community liaison who knows the area well, Jun-seok hears himself saying. He could serve as your guide, translator if needed. Someone who understands both worlds. That would be perfect. As she gathers her portfolio, Lorraine pauses at the conference room window, looking down at the city sprawled below. Mr. Han, Can I ask you something? What made you want to help Mr. Park specifically? There are thousands of homeless individuals in Seoul. For a moment, he considers telling her the truth, that Mr. Park isn't someone he wants to help, but someone he's trying to understand. Instead, he gives her the answer that's both a lie and the deepest truth he knows. Sometimes we don't choose who matters to us. Sometimes they choose us. And as she smiles at this response, Kyungrae Soh realizes that he's created more than an elaborate deception. He's created a test of his own humanity, with Lorraine Matthews as both judge and salvation. The bulldozers arrive at 5:30 a.m., their yellow bulk casting harsh shadows across the Hope Shelter courtyard. Lorraine jerks awake in the volunteer bunk room, her body immediately recognizing the sound of institutional violence even before her mind catches up. "What's happening?" she asks Father Park, who's already dressed and moving with the grim efficiency of someone who's fought this battle before. "Emergency eviction order," he says without stopping. "Came through last night. The city claims the building violates new safety codes." Through the window, Lorraine watches men in hard hats directing machinery toward the modest building that's housed Seoul's most vulnerable for the past 15 years. Among the displaced residents gathering their belongings in trash bags, she spots a familiar figure, Mr. Park, folding a coat that looks suspiciously like her own. "The translator guy," she tells Father Park, "the one who's been helping me navigate the shelter system. He said he'd be here early today." What she doesn't mention is how Mr. Park, the guide, not the homeless man, has become essential to her work over the past 2 weeks. His knowledge of both corporate bureaucracy and street-level needs feels almost supernatural. He translates not just language, but context, helping her understand the invisible rules that govern Korean social hierarchies. She pulls on clothes and rushes downstairs, where chaos is organizing itself into terrible efficiency. Residents stream past with their lives compressed into whatever containers they could find. Children cry. Elderly men sit on concrete steps looking shell-shocked. "This is insane," she says to the first official-looking person she sees. "These people have nowhere else to go." The man in the yellow safety vest shrugs. "Emergency safety order. Building is condemned." "Condemned as of when?" "This was fine yesterday." "Ma'am, please step back behind the line." But Lorraine is already moving, her phone out, live streaming to her social media accounts. "This is what manufactured homelessness looks like," she says to the camera, panning across the scene. 15 minutes notice to vacate the only shelter serving this district. Behind her, she hears a familiar voice speaking Korean with the rapid authority of someone accustomed to giving orders. She turns to see her translator, Mr. Park, the guide, arguing with a bulldozer operator, gesturing toward the building with sharp, commanding movements. There's something different about his posture, she realizes. Gone is the deferential helpfulness he usually shows around her. This is someone who expects to be obeyed, someone whose presence alone can stop industrial machinery. "What's he saying?" she asks Father Park. "He's demanding to see the legal documentation for the eviction. He's asking about due process, about notice periods, about..." Father Park pauses, listening more carefully. "About Municipal Code 47B, which requires 90-day notification for shelter closures." Lorraine feels her stomach drop. Municipal Code 47B. Her translator guide knows municipal housing codes by heart. The bulldozer operator is backing down, radioing someone for instructions. Other workers are gathering around Mr. Park, who's now speaking into his own phone with the clipped efficiency of someone who makes decisions that affect thousands of lives. "Father Park," Lorraine says slowly. "My translator. What exactly do you know about him?" The older man's eyes are thoughtful as he watches Mr. Park coordinate what appears to be a legal intervention happening in real time. "I know that he speaks like a man accustomed to authority. I know that city officials suddenly defer to him when he makes phone calls. And I know that good translators usually don't carry business cards from Seoul's most expensive legal firms." Lorraine's phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. "Eviction suspended pending legal review. Residents can return to building. We'll explain everything later. Your translator." She stares at the message, then at the man who sent it. Mr. Park, her guide, is now speaking to Father Park with what looks like genuine respect, but also with the careful tone of someone making promises he has the power to keep. The building is safe for now, he calls to her in English, walking over with his phone still pressed to his ear. Legal team is reviewing the eviction order. Should have preliminary findings within the hour. Legal team? Lorraine repeats. What legal team? For just a moment, his composure cracks, and she sees something like panic flicker across his face. I called a legal aid organization that works with shelter advocacy. It's a good lie, delivered with practiced smoothness. But Lorraine has spent enough time in corporate boardrooms to recognize the difference between someone who knows lawyers and someone who employs them. Mr. Park, she says carefully, I'm grateful for whatever you did here. But I think we need to have a conversation about who you really are. The way he goes very still tells her everything she needs to know. Her translator guide and the homeless man she gave her coat to aren't the same person. But they both know exactly who Han Jun-suk is. And now, she's about to find out why the CEO of Korea's most powerful corporation has been pretending to be two different people while helping her document the failures of the system he profits from. Director Kang's office smells like expensive leather and suppressed rage. Han Jun-seok sits across from him at 7 a.m., still wearing yesterday's clothes from the shelter, watching his father's oldest business partner shuffle through a manila folder thick with surveillance photos. Fascinating reading, Kang says, spreading the images across his mahogany desk like cards in a deadly game. Our CEO having coffee with American consultants. Our CEO stopping construction equipment with phone calls. Our CEO sleeping in Gangnam alleys for a week. Each photograph is precisely composed, professionally shot. Jun-seok recognizes the work of the same investigation firm the company uses for due diligence on acquisitions. Kang has been watching him for weeks. And this, Kang continues, placing down the final image, is my personal favorite. It's a still frame from Lorraine's viral video, but enhanced and clarified by expensive software. Even in the rain-soaked darkness, Jun-seok's face is unmistakable to anyone who knows what to look for. You've been busy, Jun-seok says, his voice carefully neutral. In the corporate world, showing weakness to Director Kang is like bleeding in shark-infested waters. I've been protecting this company while you've been playing dress-up with homeless people. Kang leans back in his chair, fingers steepled. Do you have any idea what this would do to our stock price if it leaked? The CEO of Hanseong Group conducting secret social experiments? The media would call it everything from mental breakdown to elaborate tax evasion scheme. Or they might call it leadership. Kang's laugh is sharp as broken glass. Leadership? Jun-seok, your father built this empire on predictability, on carefully controlled public image. You're threatening all of that for what? A social media moment with some American bleeding heart? Her name is Lorraine Matthews, and she's shown more genuine understanding of human dignity in 2 weeks than this company has managed in 20 years. Ah yes, Ms. Matthews. Kang pulls out another folder, this one thicker than the first. Chicago-born, museum experience designer, currently on a tourist visa that expires in 10 days. Interesting background, actually. Grew up in public housing, worked her way through college, built a career helping cultural institutions create authentic human connections. Quite the inspiring story. The implicit threat makes Jun-seok's blood run cold. Director Kang, if you're thinking about using immigration pressure, I'm thinking about protecting Hanseong Group from a scandal that could cost us billions. Your little social experiment ends now, today. You will announce that the company is launching a new community outreach initiative with full media fanfare. Ms. Matthews will be credited as a consultant, generously compensated, and sent home to America with a glowing recommendation letter. And if I refuse? Kang's smile is all predator, no warmth. Then tomorrow morning's Chosun Ilbo will feature an exposé about Hanseong's CEO suffering a psychological breakdown, living as a homeless person while the company stock price reaches record highs. The board of directors will have no choice but to call for a competency review. Your controlling stake in the company won't protect you if shareholders lose confidence in your mental stability. Jun Seok stares at the photographs scattered across the desk. Evidence of the most honest weeks of his adult life, weaponized against him by the system he's spent decades building. You're asking me to turn authentic human connection into a marketing opportunity. I'm asking you to be the CEO this company needs, not the idealistic dreamer you apparently want to become. Kang gathers the photos into a neat stack. You have until the press conference at 3 p.m. to decide which version of Han Jun Seok survives this conversation. And, Ms. Matthews? Will thank you for the career opportunity and return to Chicago before she realizes that the homeless man she helped and the CEO she's consulting for are the same person. Kang's eyes glitter with satisfaction. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to explain that deception to her yourself. After Jun Seok leaves, he sits in his car in the underground parking garage, staring at his reflection in the rearview mirror. For the past 3 weeks, he's been discovering what it feels like to be truly seen by another human being. Now he has 6 hours to choose between preserving that connection and preserving everything else he's built. His phone buzzes with a text from Lorraine. Found something interesting about the shelter eviction. Can we meet? Your homeless friend Mr. Park might want to hear this too. And Han Jun Seok realizes that the most dangerous thing about authentic human connection isn't that it changes you. It's that once you've experienced it, everything else feels like suffocation. But in 5 hours, he has to choose between breathing and surviving. The Hanseong Group press conference room fills with cameras and journalists like a predator's den, preparing for feeding time. Lorraine sits in the front row, her designer notebook balanced on her knee, watching Han Jun Seok arrange papers at the podium with the mechanical precision of someone performing surgery on himself. For 3 hours, she's been trying to reconcile the growing list of impossibilities about her translator guide. His knowledge of municipal codes, his ability to mobilize legal teams with single phone calls, the way city officials defer to him with the automatic respect reserved for serious power. Most damning of all, the way he'd gone perfectly still yesterday when she'd asked who he really was, like someone calculating the blast radius of truth. Ladies and gentlemen, Jun Seok begins, his voice carrying the rehearsed authority of countless corporate presentations. Thank you for joining us today for an important announcement about Hanseong Group's commitment to social responsibility. Lorraine's phone buzzes with a message from Maya. Girl, turn on Korean news. Something big is happening with your CEO friend. She glances around the room, noting the unusual tension among the Hanseong staff. So Min stands near the back wall, her face carefully neutral, but her knuckles white around her tablet. Director Kang occupies the side of the room like a general surveying a battlefield he's already won. 3 weeks ago, Jun Seok continues, a video went viral featuring an act of simple human kindness between an American visitor and a Korean citizen experiencing homelessness. This interaction sparked conversations about dignity, compassion, and our responsibilities to Seoul's most vulnerable residents. On the screen behind him, Lorraine's own face appears. The grainy footage from that rainy night, her hand extending the coat to the figure in shadows. Seeing it projected in corporate high definition feels surreal, like watching a private moment transformed into public spectacle. Today, Hanseong Group is proud to announce our partnership with internationally recognized experience designer Lorraine Matthews to develop comprehensive programs addressing urban homelessness through dignity-centered design. Applause fills the room, but Lorraine barely hears it. Something about Jun Seok's delivery feels wrong. Too smooth, too detached. This is a man reciting lines, not sharing vision. Mr. Han, a journalist calls out, can you tell us more about what inspired this particular focus on homelessness? Jun Seok's pause lasts exactly 1 second too long. Hanseong Group believes that corporate success must be measured not only in profit margins but in positive social impact. It's the kind of meaningless corporate speak that makes Lorraine's teeth ache. This isn't the man who'd spoken passionately about authentic human connection in their private meetings. This is someone performing a role he doesn't believe in. Ms. Matthews, another journalist addresses her directly. What was your initial reaction when Hanseong approached you about this partnership? Lorraine stands, her mind racing through fragments of conversation, inconsistencies in her translator's story, The impossible coincidences that have shaped the past 3 weeks. Actually, she hears herself saying, I have a question for Mr. Han. The room goes quiet. Jun Seok's eyes find hers, and for a moment, she sees something that looks like relief mixed with terror. Mr. Han, you mentioned that this initiative was inspired by the viral video, but I'm curious, have you ever met the homeless man from that footage? The one I gave my coat to? We attempted to locate him through our outreach programs, but haven't been successful. That's interesting, Lorraine says, her voice carrying clearly through the microphone-amplified silence. Because 3 weeks ago, I shared kimbap with a homeless man who called himself Mr. Park. And for the past 2 weeks, I've been working with a translator guide who also calls himself Mr. Park. Both men have the same voice, the same mannerisms, and the same uncanny ability to navigate both corporate boardrooms and shelter kitchens. The camera operators are swinging their equipment toward her now, sensing blood in the water. Jun-suk grips the podium edges like a man trying not to drown. Ms. Matthews, I'm not sure what you're suggesting. I'm suggesting, she says, standing fully now, her notebook forgotten, that Han Jun-seok and Mr. Park are the same person. That Korea's most powerful CEO spent a week living as a homeless man, and I was the stranger who stopped to see if he was okay. The explosion of camera flashes feels like lightning. Journalists erupt with questions. Director Kang's face cycles through rage, panic, and calculation in rapid succession. But Lorraine only watches Jun-seok, waiting to see if the man who accepted her coat in the rain will finally have the courage to tell the truth in fluorescent lighting. Is it true, Mr. Han? The questions come from every direction now. Did you pose as a homeless person? Were you conducting some kind of social experiment? Is this an elaborate publicity stunt? And in that moment, staring across the chaos at the woman who saved him by seeing him as human, Han Jun-seok realizes that the most dangerous truth is also the only one worth telling. The Starbucks in Myeongdong becomes a war room by 4 p.m., laptops and coffee cups scattered across tables as Korean media launches the most intensive manhunt in corporate history. Lorraine sits in the corner, watching news anchors dissect her life story with the methodical precision of forensic scientists. American museum designer exposes billionaire CEO's secret identity, scrolls across every screen. Her LinkedIn profile, her Chicago apartment building, her undergraduate thesis on authentic cultural spaces. Nothing is private anymore. Her phone hasn't stopped ringing since the press conference exploded 2 hours ago. CNN, BBC, every major American network wanting exclusive interviews. Korean media offering translation services and consulting fees for her perspective on the homeless billionaire scandal. But the text messages are worse. Death threats from Han Jun-seok's supporters, calling her a gold digger who manipulated a vulnerable CEO. Marriage proposals from strangers who think she's now connected to a fortune. Conspiracy theories about elaborate American plots to destroy Korean corporate structures. This is insane, she mutters, declining another call from Good Morning America. On her tablet, she watches security footage from the Hansong building. Jun-seok, fleeing through a service exit while reporters storm the lobby, So-min forming a human shield to protect his escape route. Director Kang giving an emergency press conference, his voice smooth with practiced damage control. Mr. Han is dealing with significant personal stress and has taken temporary leave to address these challenges. Temporary leave. Code for billionaire nervous breakdown, stock price in free fall, board of directors preparing coup. Lorraine's phone buzzes with an unknown number. Are you safe? Your translator. Even now, even after everything, he's still checking on her well-being. The thought makes her throat tight with something she refuses to identify as affection. She types back, safe but confused. Why didn't you tell me? The response comes immediately. Same reason you didn't ask. Some truths are too dangerous to speak out loud. Where are you now? Somewhere I can think. Thank you for not pretending you didn't know. Lorraine stares at the message, remembering the exact moment she'd realized her translator's knowledge ran too deep. his authority too natural, his investment in her work too personal. She could have confronted him privately, could have demanded explanations behind closed doors. Instead, she'd chosen the nuclear option, public exposure in front of every major media outlet in Seoul. "Why did I do that?" she asks aloud. "Because you're angry." The voice makes her look up. So Min slides into the opposite chair, her professional composure cracked with exhaustion and something that looks like admiration. "Ms. Matthews, I'm So Min, Mr. Han's communications advisor. I think we need to talk. If you're here to offer me money to disappear, the answer is no." So Min's laugh sounds genuinely surprised. "Actually, I'm here to thank you. In 3 years of working for him, I've never seen Mr. Han as present as he's been these past weeks. Whatever happened between you two, it changed him. Changed him into what? A man who lies to strangers about his identity? A man who remembers what it feels like to be seen as human." So Min pulls out her tablet, showing Lorraine internal Hanseong documents. "Look at these. Policy proposals he's been drafting since your first meeting. Living wage initiatives, homeless employment programs, dignity-centered urban planning requirements for all Hanseong developments. The documents are detailed, passionate, nothing like the corporate templates Lorraine expected. These read like manifestos written by someone who's discovered that profit margins aren't the only metric that matters. He's trying to transform one of Korea's most powerful companies into something that actually serves human needs." So Min continues. "The board wants to destroy him for it. Director Kang is already mobilizing votes for a leadership challenge. Then why the elaborate deception? Why not just be honest about wanting to understand homelessness?" So Min's expression grows complicated. Because honest vulnerability and corporate leadership don't coexist in Korea. The moment Mr. Han showed genuine uncertainty about anything, his enemies would use it to destroy him. The disguise wasn't about tricking you, it was about surviving long enough to become someone worthy of the truth you showed him. Lorraine's phone buzzes with another message. "I know I have no right to ask this, but the shelter needs you more than my reputation does. Don't let my mistakes destroy the work you're building." And suddenly she understands. Han Jun-seok isn't hiding from the media circus he's created. He's protecting the mission that brought them together, ensuring that authentic human connection doesn't become another casualty of corporate warfare. The question now is whether she's brave enough to fight for that mission, and for the man who risked everything to show her that even billionaires can learn to be human again. Han Jun-seok's penthouse apartment overlooks Seoul like a glass cage suspended above the city he once thought he owned. For 18 hours, he's been watching news coverage of his corporate suicide, fielding calls from lawyers, accountants, and board members who speak in the careful tones reserved for managing unstable CEOs. The stock dropped 12% in overnight trading. So Min reports from the leather couch, surrounded by laptops displaying real-time financial carnage. Director Kang is calling emergency board sessions. The major shareholders want a competency hearing within 48 hours. What about the Dignity Initiative? Suspended pending leadership review. All funding frozen. The shelter programs you approved yesterday have been put on hold indefinitely. Jun-seok closes his eyes, remembering Father Park's face when the bulldozers arrived. The way displacement had looked like defeat, until someone with enough power decided to care. Now that power is evaporating, minute by minute, tweet by tweet. "Sir?" So Min's voice carries a note he's never heard before. Not just professional concern, but genuine affection. There might be another option. She pulls up a video on her tablet, Lorraine's Instagram story from 2 hours ago. No professional lighting, no corporate messaging. Just her face in what looks like a hotel room, dark circles under her eyes, and an expression of fierce determination. "I've been getting a lot of questions about Han Jun-seok," Lorraine says to the camera. "About whether I was manipulated, whether this was some elaborate corporate stunt, whether I feel betrayed by what happened. And honestly, I'm angry, but not about what you might think." The video cuts to footage of the shelter eviction, shaky phone camera capturing the chaos of families displaced in 15 minutes. "I'm angry that we live in a world where showing basic human compassion becomes a viral sensation. I'm angry that a billionaire has to disguise himself as homeless to understand poverty. I'm angry that authentic human connection is so rare that when we see it, we assume it must be fake. She pauses, and Jun Seok recognizes the expression. It's the same focused intensity she'd shown when extending her coat in the rain. But I'm not angry at Han Jun Seok for not telling me who he was. I'm angry at a system that made honesty too dangerous for him to risk. Her eyes look directly into the camera. And I'm angry at myself for thinking that public humiliation was the same thing as demanding accountability. The video has been viewed 200,000 times since she posted it. Comments flood the screen in Korean, English, and languages Jun Seok doesn't recognize, but the sentiment is universal. Support, understanding, and something that looks remarkably like hope. She's flying back to Chicago tomorrow, So Min says quietly. Her visa expires, and with the media attention, immigration is fast-tracking her exit. Jun Seok's phone rings. Director Kang's name appears on the screen, and for a moment, he considers letting it go to voicemail. But 3 decades of corporate conditioning make him answer. Jun Seok. Kang's voice carries the satisfied tone of someone who's watched an enemy destroy himself. I assume you've seen the overnight numbers? I've seen them. Then you know you have exactly 48 hours before the board votes on emergency leadership transition. You can fight it, of course, but the shareholders won't support a CEO whose judgment they can't trust. Or you step down gracefully, maintain your dignity, and I'll ensure you receive a generous consulting package to ease your transition into whatever comes next. The American girl gets a quiet settlement to prevent further media appearances, and we all move on with our lives. Jun Seok watches Lorraine's video again, studying her face as she talks about systemic failures and personal accountability. She understands something that his entire corporate education missed, that real change requires choosing vulnerability over safety, even when it costs everything. Director Kang, I need to ask you something. In 30 years of running this company, have you ever made a decision that mattered more than profit margins? The pause tells him everything. Jun Seok, you're not thinking clearly. Take the settlement. Walk away. What if I don't want to walk away? What if I want to run toward something instead? After he hangs up, Jun Seok sits in his glass tower, watching Seoul wake up below him. In 47 hours and 23 minutes, he'll either be the former CEO of Hansong Group, or he'll be something else entirely. A man who chose authentic human connection over corporate survival. The only question left is whether he has the courage to make that choice, while the woman who taught him what courage looks like is still close enough to see him try. At 6 a.m. on the morning of the board vote, Han Jun Seok walks into Hanseong Tower carrying a single manila folder and the weight of a decision that will either save his career or end it. The marble lobby echoes with the soft shuffle of employees arriving early to witness corporate history, their whispered conversations creating a symphony of speculation and dread. Sir. So Min falls into step beside him, her tablet clutched like a shield. The board members arrived an hour ago. Director Kang's been in pre-meetings since 5 a.m. The media is set up outside. They know something major is happening. Good. They should witness this. The elevator carries them up 47 floors in silence that feels like a countdown. When the doors open, the executive conference room is already full. 12 board members arranged around the mahogany table like judges at a trial. Director Kang at the head with documents spread before him like evidence of guilt. Jun Seok. Kang doesn't rise, doesn't extend basic courtesy. Power has shifted overnight, and everyone in the room can feel it. Thank you for joining us. I trust you've prepared your statement regarding yesterday's revelation. I have. Jun Seok takes his seat at the opposite end of the table, placing the manila folder carefully in front of him. But first, I have an announcement to make. He opens the folder, revealing not the resignation letter they're expecting, but a comprehensive business proposal bound in Hansong's corporate colors. Effective immediately, Hansong Group will be launching the most ambitious corporate social responsibility initiative in Korean business history. The Dignity Initiative will dedicate 20% of our annual profit to addressing systemic homelessness through employment programs, transitional housing, and dignity-centered urban development. The silence is absolute. Director Kang's face cycles through confusion, rage, and something that looks like panic. 20%? Board member Kim speaks first, his voice sharp with disbelief. That's nearly 400 billion won annually. Jun Seok, have you completely lost touch with reality? I've found reality for the first time in decades. Jun Seok stands, walking to the presentation screen. For 3 weeks, I lived as one of Seoul's invisible citizens. I learned that our success is built on a foundation of systematic indifference to human suffering. The Dignity Initiative isn't charity, it's justice. The presentation clicks to life. Detailed financial projections, pilot program structures, measurable outcomes. This isn't the work of someone having a breakdown. It's the product of strategic thinking applied to moral imperatives. The board will never approve this, Director Kang says, but his voice lacks its usual authority. Our shareholders didn't invest in Hanseong to fund social experiments. Our shareholders invested in sustainable long-term growth. What's more sustainable than building communities where people can thrive rather than just survive? Board member Park raises her hand. The financial models look surprisingly robust. But Jun Seok, the reputational risk from your recent behavior, the reputational risk from authentic leadership? The conference room door opens, and Lorraine Matthews walks in, flanked by So Min and carrying a tablet loaded with data. Because I've spent the past 24 hours analyzing the market response to yesterday's revelation, and the story isn't what you might expect. She clicks her tablet, and new numbers flood the presentation screen. Social media engagement, international news coverage, stock pre-market indicators. Hanseong's stock dropped initially, yes, but overnight, something interesting happened. International investors started buying. Companies across Europe and North America reached out about partnerships. The market is rewarding authenticity, not punishing it. Director Kang stands abruptly. Ms. Matthews, this is a closed board meeting. You have no authority to... Actually, she does. Jun Seok's voice cuts through the objection. As of this morning, Ms. Matthews is Hanseong's Chief Experience Officer, with full authority to speak to issues of human-centered corporate strategy. The title is new, created 15 minutes ago in the elevator, but it carries the weight of absolute conviction. Lorraine's smile is small but genuine. She understands what he's offering, and more importantly, what it costs him to offer it. The Dignity Initiative isn't a betrayal of Hanseong's mission, she says, addressing the room with the confidence of someone who's spent years translating human needs into corporate language. It's the evolution of that mission into something that actually matters. For 20 minutes, she walks them through implementation strategies, partnership opportunities, measurable impact assessments. The board members ask pointed questions, but their hostility is transforming into curiosity, then into something that looks remarkably like engagement. When the presentation ends, the room sits in contemplative silence. Finally, board member Kim speaks. The proposal has merit, but it hinges entirely on public trust in leadership that's just been compromised. Then let's address that directly, Jun Seok says. He pulls out his phone, opens the camera app, and hands it to So Min. Record this. Sir? Record this. If we're going to stake Hanseong's future on transparency, then we start now. And as So Min raises the phone, Han Jun Seok looks directly into the camera and begins to tell the truth. Not the corporate sanitized version, but the messy, human, complicated truth about what happens when a billionaire learns to be seen, and why that lesson is worth betting everything on. The emergency board meeting extends past midnight, Korean corporate democracy playing out in real time, as 12 of Seoul's most powerful executives wrestle with a question that shouldn't be complicated: whether acknowledging human dignity is compatible with fiduciary responsibility. The video has 3 million views. So Min reports from her laptop station in the hallway. International media is calling it the most honest corporate apology in business history. The stock futures are actually trending upward. Through the conference room's glass walls, Lorraine watches the battle for Hanseong's soul unfold in heated Korean, punctuated by the occasional English phrase when passion overwhelms protocol. Director Kang sits like a general watching his carefully planned coup dissolve into chaos, while board members who arrived as allies now question whether destroying Jun Seok means destroying their own relevance. Ms. Park is wavering, So Min translates quietly. She's asking about implementation timelines, not rejecting the proposal outright. Mr. Kim keeps checking his phone, probably watching social media responses to the CEO's video. The video. Lorraine has watched it 17 times now, studying Jun Seok's face as he speaks directly to the camera with the raw vulnerability of someone who's stopped performing for approval. No corporate talking points, no strategic messaging, just truth delivered like a man bleeding out his secrets in public. "I lied to someone who showed me unconditional kindness," he'd said, looking directly into the lens. "I betrayed the trust of a woman who saw me as human when I'd forgotten how to see myself that way. But I'm not apologizing for discovering that authentic human connection matters more than quarterly profits. I'm apologizing for taking so long to learn it." The conference room door opens, and board member Lee emerges, his usual composure cracked with exhaustion. "Ms. Matthews, the board would like to hear your assessment of potential implementation challenges." Lorraine gathers her tablet and notebook, feeling the weight of institutional power focusing on her like a spotlight. Inside the conference room, 12 faces turn toward her with expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility to something that might be hope. "Thank you for including me," she says, taking the empty chair across from Director Kang. "I've been analyzing similar dignity-centered initiatives in Chicago, Amsterdam, and Melbourne. The data suggests that corporate-funded homeless services programs consistently outperform government alternatives when properly structured. But the cost," Director Kang begins. "The cost of ignoring the problem is higher," Lorraine interrupts, pulling up her financial models. Hanseong owns 47 retail properties in Seoul alone. Current vacancy rates average 12%. Converting unused ground floor space into transitional housing and job training centers would reduce vacancy costs while creating measurable community impact. Board member Kim leans forward, genuinely engaged. "You're suggesting we turn retail failures into social assets? I'm suggesting you turn social investment into competitive advantage. Corporate social responsibility isn't charity anymore, it's market differentiation. Companies that demonstrate authentic commitment to human welfare attract better employees, more loyal customers, and increasingly, more capital investment." For the next hour, she walks them through implementation strategies that transform moral imperatives into business opportunities. The questions grow more technical, less hostile. Even Director Kang begins asking about operational details rather than fundamental objections. "The proposal has merit," Board Member Park finally says, "but it requires leadership that commands public trust. Given recent developments, can Mr. Han provide that leadership?" The room falls silent. All eyes turn to Jun Seok, who's been listening with the careful attention of someone whose entire future depends on this moment. "3 weeks ago, I couldn't have," he says quietly. 3 weeks ago, I was a CEO who'd never had an authentic conversation with someone who didn't want something from me. Today, I'm a man who's learned that real leadership means choosing vulnerability over invincibility, even when it costs everything. He looks directly at Director Kang. "You're right to question my judgment. I made decisions that prioritize personal growth over corporate stability. But I'm asking this board to bet on a different kind of stability. The kind that comes from building a company people are proud to be associated with, not just profitable to invest in." Director Kang's response carries the weight of 30 years of corporate warfare. "And if this experiment fails, if your idealism crashes against market realities and shareholders lose billions, then I'll take full responsibility and resign," Jun Seok says. "But if it succeeds, we'll have proven that Korean business can lead the world in something more meaningful than market capitalization." The vote, when it finally comes at 2:47 a.m., is closer than anyone expected. 7 in favor of the Dignity Initiative, 5 opposed. Not a mandate, but enough to move forward. As board members file out, Director Kang approaches Lorraine with the measured respect of someone acknowledging a worthy adversary. Ms. Matthews, you've won this battle. But implementation will be far more difficult than presentation. Are you prepared for that reality? Director Kang, she replies, gathering her materials with steady hands. I've spent my career turning impossible visions into measurable outcomes. This won't be different, just more important. And as she watches him leave, Lorraine realizes that the real war isn't about corporate governance or social responsibility. It's about whether Han Jun-seok can become the leader he discovered himself to be while living in the shadows, now that he has to do it in the unforgiving light of public scrutiny. The coffee shop in Hongdae becomes a battlefield at 9 a.m. when Lorraine realizes she can't order a simple latte without triggering a social media incident. Phone cameras track her movement from the entrance to the counter, documenting her choice of beverage like evidence in a trial she never asked to join. The foreign woman who exposed Korea's homeless billionaire, whispers a customer behind her in Korean, apparently unaware that 3 weeks in Seoul has improved her language skills considerably. Some people say she planned it all along. Lorraine's phone buzzes with a Google alert. American gold digger or social justice warrior? The truth about Lorraine Matthews. The article, published by a gossip blog with questionable ethics, features photos of her Chicago apartment building, with arrows pointing to luxury details, like her 10-year-old Honda Civic, and a balcony garden that apparently screams, desperate for billionaire boyfriend. The barista, a young woman with pink-streaked hair and nervous eyes, approaches her order with the careful reverence reserved for celebrities and dangerous animals. Ms. Lorraine, I watched your video about Mr. Han. Very brave. Thank you, Lorraine says, though she's beginning to question whether what she did was brave or just spectacularly naive. But also, the barista continues, lowering her voice. Some people very angry. They say you make Korean men look, how do you say, weak, like they need foreign women to teach them compassion. The cultural dimension of the backlash hits her like cold water. This isn't just about corporate scandal or social responsibility. It's about national pride, gender dynamics, and the complex intersection of Korean identity with international perception. Her phone rings. Maya's number appears on the screen, and Lorraine steps outside to answer, dodging the photographer who's been following her since she left her hotel. Girl, you need to come home, Maya says without preamble. Like, today. I've been monitoring the situation from Chicago, and this is about to get ugly. What do you mean? I mean Korean internet forums are doxing you. Someone posted your college transcripts, your credit score, your dating history from 5 years ago. They're building a case that you're some kind of international con artist who targets vulnerable, rich men. Lorraine sinks onto a bench, watching Seoul rush past her in streams of purposeful humanity. Maya, that's insane. I gave a homeless man my coat. How does that make me a con artist? Because you exposed their Golden Boy CEO as a fraud, and now they need someone to blame. The narrative is writing itself. Manipulative American woman destroys Korean business leader through emotional blackmail. And what's the other narrative? Maya's pause is telling. The other narrative is that you're a naive idealist who got played by a billionaire's elaborate publicity stunt. Either way, you're the villain. After Maya hangs up, Lorraine sits on the bench reading comment threads in 3 languages, each more creative in its character assassination than the last. Her favorite, translated from Korean. This woman probably studied Korean men in university to learn how to manipulate our emotions. She is cultural terrorist disguised as humanitarian. Her phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Are you seeing this? I'm sorry. Jun-seok. She types back. Seeing it. Not your fault. It is my fault. I put you in this position. You put yourself in this position. I chose to stay in it. Why? It's the question she's been avoiding for 48 hours. Why stay in Seoul when her visa expires tomorrow? Why accept a job with a company in crisis? Why fight for a man she's known for 3 weeks and a mission that might destroy them both? Because someone has to prove that authentic human connection is worth fighting for, she types. Even when it's messy and complicated, and the internet thinks you're a gold-digging cultural terrorist. Meet me at the shelter tonight, 8 p.m. There's something I want to show you. Is this about the initiative? It's about what happens when we stop caring what other people think and start building something real. That evening, Lorraine walks through the streets of Gangnam toward the Hope Shelter, past the neon advertisements and glass towers that represent everything Hansong Group has built. But she's not thinking about corporate empires or media narratives. She's thinking about a man in a rain-soaked hoodie who'd accepted her coat like someone remembering what it felt like to be cared for. And as she approaches the shelter, she sees him waiting in the doorway. Not the polished CEO from the boardroom, but someone who looks remarkably like Mr. Park, the homeless man who taught her that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let someone else see that you're human. The media wants a love story or a scandal. But what they're building is something more dangerous than either. A partnership based on the radical idea that dignity matters more than profit, even when the whole world is watching. Father Park's office smells like instant coffee and decades of difficult conversations. At 8:30 p.m., it becomes the war room, where Seoul's most unlikely revolutionaries plan their next move, while Korean media dissects their every choice on screens across the city. The backlash is worse than we expected, Father Park says, spreading printed articles across his desk like evidence at a crime scene. 3 board members have called private meetings with Director Kang. Major shareholders are demanding more oversight of the Dignity Initiative, and there's a petition with 50,000 signatures calling for Ms. Matthews to be deported. Lorraine studies the headlines without flinching. Foreign influence threatens Korean business traditions. American woman's manipulation tactics exposed. How international feminism is destroying Asian corporate culture. They're terrified, she says quietly. Not of me personally, but of what I represent. Which is? Jun-seok asks from the corner, where he's been standing with the careful stillness of someone processing the cost of radical honesty. Change that can't be controlled by traditional power structures. I'm a foreign woman who exposed a Korean CEO's vulnerability and somehow made that vulnerability look like strength. That breaks too many rules at once. Father Park pours 3 cups of coffee with the ritualistic precision of someone who's navigated Seoul's social hierarchies for 6 decades. The question is whether you can survive long enough for the change to take root, or whether the system will crush this before it grows. The system is already trying, Jun-seok says, pulling up news coverage on his phone. Director Kang gave an interview this morning, suggesting that my emotional instability makes me unfit for corporate leadership. He's positioning himself as the voice of stability and traditional Korean values. Traditional Korean values, Lorraine repeats, tasting the irony. Like ignoring homeless people in the rain? Like maintaining hierarchies that protect established power? Father Park corrects gently. What you two represent is dangerous because it's working. The shelter has received more donation calls in the past week than in the previous year. 3 major Korean companies have reached out about partnership opportunities. International media is calling Seoul a model for corporate social responsibility. Lorraine's phone buzzes with a notification that makes her stomach drop. Breaking. Seoul Immigration Office reviews tourist visa status of homeless video American woman. They're trying to deport me, she says, showing them the screen. Immigration suddenly has concerns about my visa compliance, specifically whether my recent media appearances constitute unauthorized employment. The silence is heavy with implication. Jun-seok sets down his coffee cup with the careful control of someone managing rage. Director Kang has connections throughout the government. If he's weaponizing immigration law, then I have about 48 hours before I'm on a plane to Chicago, Lorraine finishes. The question is what we can accomplish in 48 hours. Father Park leans forward, his expression shifting from concern to something that looks remarkably like strategic determination. What if deportation isn't the threat they think it is? What if it becomes the catalyst for everything we're trying to build? What do you mean? I mean that forcing out the American woman who showed compassion to Korean homeless people makes very specific statement about Korean values. It creates international narrative about whether Korea is open to outside perspectives on social justice. Jun-seok begins pacing, his mind clearly working through possibilities. If they deport Lorraine for helping homeless people, it becomes bigger story than anything we could create through normal channels. You're talking about turning my deportation into a media strategy, Lorraine says slowly. Using my forced exit to generate international pressure for the changes we want to implement. I'm talking about making sure that if they destroy you for caring about human dignity, the whole world gets to witness that choice. Father Park says quietly. Sometimes martyrdom is more powerful than victory. The word martyrdom sits heavily in the small office. Lorraine stares at the articles spread across Father Park's desk, imagining herself as the central figure in an international incident she never wanted to create. There's another option, she says finally. What if I don't fight the deportation? What if I leave voluntarily but document everything? Create a record of what happens when corporate power collides with authentic human connection. You'd give up the work here? Jun-seok's voice carries something that might be disappointment or admiration. I'd transform the work into something they can't control or silence. International pressure, corporate accountability, documented proof that dignity-centered business practices actually work. She looks at him directly. The question is whether you're willing to continue this mission without me here, to shield you from the hardest choices. Shield me? Jun-seok, as long as I'm here, you can blame the foreign influence for pushing you towards social responsibility. The moment I leave, every choice you make becomes purely Korean, purely yours. That's when the real test begins. And as they sit in Father Park's office, planning for a future that might separate them by continents but unite them in purpose, Lorraine realizes that the price of transparency isn't just personal. It's the willingness to let go of everything you want to protect in order to create something larger than yourself. The converted Hanseong delivery trucks arrive at Hope Shelter at dawn, their corporate logos replaced with simple Korean characters that translate to dignity on wheels. Lorraine stands in the courtyard watching 3 months of planning become reality, her deportation order folded in her jacket pocket like a countdown timer to everything ending. 12 showers, 4 laundry stations, 2 job counseling offices, So-min reports, checking items off her tablet as workers unload equipment. The mobile units can serve up to 200 people daily, rotating between 6 shelter locations across Seoul. It's the first concrete implementation of the Dignity Initiative, and it's happening just 36 hours before Lorraine's mandatory departure from Korea. The timing isn't coincidental. Jun-seok has been racing against bureaucratic deportation, trying to prove that their partnership created something tangible before external forces tear it apart. The irony is beautiful, Lorraine says, watching homeless individuals begin to queue with the patient dignity of people accustomed to waiting for basic needs. They're forcing me to leave Korea for helping Korean people access services that Korean Corporation is now providing. Father Park approaches with a man Lorraine hasn't seen before. Elderly, wearing clothes that speak of recent homelessness, but carrying himself with careful pride. Ms. Lorraine, I'd like you to meet Mr. Jung. He was here the night the bulldozers came. Mr. Jung bows slightly, then speaks in Korean with Father Park, translating. He says he watched you face the construction workers that morning. He wants to know if you're really leaving Korea. Tomorrow afternoon, Lorraine confirms. But the mobile showers will stay. The job programs will continue. The work doesn't end because I have to go. Mr. Young listens to Father Park's translation, then responds with what sounds like a question. Father Park's expression grows complicated as he translates. He's asking whether Mr. Han, the CEO, will remember how to see homeless people as human once the American woman isn't here to remind him. The question hits harder than expected. Lorraine has been so focused on policy implementation and media strategy that she hasn't fully processed the personal dimension of leaving. For 3 weeks, she and Jun-seok have been building something that required both of their perspectives, her outsider's clarity about dignity, his insider's understanding of power structures. Where is Mr. Han today? She asks So-min. Board meeting. Final approval for Phase 2 of the Dignity Initiative. Director Kang is making one last attempt to limit the program scope, but the votes should hold. Lorraine's phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Can you meet me tonight? Last chance to talk before tomorrow. Your translator. Even now, facing deportation and corporate warfare, he still signs his messages as her translator. The man who helped her navigate Korean bureaucracy while secretly being the most powerful person in the room. Tell him I'll be at the shelter until 10 p.m., she responds. After that, I have packing to finish. The morning passes in a blur of logistics and goodbyes. Shelter residents approach her throughout the day, some offering small gifts, others simply wanting to practice English conversation. A woman named Mrs. Kim gives her a hand-folded paper crane, explaining through Father Park that it represents safe travels and return journeys. She says cranes always come back to the places that matter to them, Father Park translates, even if it takes many seasons. By evening, the mobile shower units have served 127 people. The laundry stations have processed 89 loads. The job counseling offices have scheduled 34 follow-up appointments for next week. Numbers that represent human dignity restored, one interaction at a time. Jun Seok arrives at 9:45 p.m., not in the corporate attire she's grown accustomed to, but wearing the kind of simple clothes that helped him blend into homeless communities 3 weeks ago. He looks exhausted but determined, carrying a manila envelope that clearly contains important documents. The board approved Phase 2, he says without preamble. Transitional housing program, job training partnerships with 12 major Korean companies, living wage employment guarantees. Director Kang fought it, but the international media attention has made opposition politically impossible. Congratulations, that's everything we planned. Not everything. He hands her the envelope. This is a consulting contract with Hanseong Group's new International Dignity Advisory Board. 1-year term, renewable, with full remote work provisions. It would allow you to return to Korea quarterly for project oversight, and to continue this work from Chicago. Lorraine stares at the contract, understanding the magnitude of what he's offering. Not just employment, but a way to maintain their partnership despite immigration authorities trying to sever it. Jun Seok. Accepting this would confirm every conspiracy theory about me manipulating you for financial gain. And rejecting it would abandon everything we've built because of what other people might think. His voice carries the weight of someone who's spent 3 weeks learning to prioritize authenticity over public opinion. The question isn't what they'll say. The question is what we can accomplish together. As they stand in the courtyard of Hope Shelter, surrounded by the mobile infrastructure of human dignity, Lorraine realizes that love isn't just about choosing each other. It's about choosing to build something larger than yourself, with someone who shares your vision of what the world could become. And tomorrow, she'll have to decide whether that vision is worth fighting for across continents and cultural barriers, or whether some connections are too dangerous to survive. Seoul Immigration Office at 8 a.m. feels like a courtroom designed by bureaucrats who've never met an actual human being. Lorraine sits in plastic chair 247, deportation order in one hand, and Hanseong consulting contract in the other, watching Korean efficiency process the end of her accidental revolution. Matthews, Lorraine Elizabeth. The immigration officer calls, his English crisp with the authority of someone who enjoys delivering bad news to foreigners. Visa violation hearing. The small office smells like fear and industrial disinfectant. Behind the metal desk, Officer Park reviews her file with the methodical attention of someone building a case he's already decided to win. Tourist Visa B2, issued September 15th. He reads aloud. Valid for 90 days, non-renewable, specifically prohibiting commercial activity or employment within Republic of Korea. I understand, Lorraine says, though understanding and agreeing are different concepts entirely. Recent media appearances suggest violation of employment restrictions, video interviews, corporate consultation activities, public speaking engagements. He looks up from the file. These constitute unauthorized work activity. Helping a homeless man isn't work activity, it's basic human decency. Officer Park's expression doesn't change. Media interviews about homeless man, yes. Corporate consultation with Hanseong Group, yes. Payment for consultation services. He checks another document. This would constitute employment violation. The catch-22 is elegant in its cruelty. She can't stay to continue the work, because continuing the work proves she was working illegally. But accepting payment for the work would legitimize her contributions while simultaneously justifying her deportation. Officer Park, may I ask you something personal? His eyebrows rise slightly. Apparently, personal questions aren't standard deportation protocol. Have you ever helped a stranger? Someone you didn't know, who couldn't do anything for you in return? The question hangs in the small office like smoke. Officer Park stares at her for 15 seconds, then returns to his paperwork. Ms. Matthews, Korean immigration law does not recognize humanitarian sentiment as visa category. You have two options: voluntary departure by 6 p.m. today, or mandatory deportation with 5-year entry ban. What if I don't choose either? Then choice is made for you. Outside the immigration office, Seoul moves with the purposeful energy of a city that builds the future by ignoring the casualties of the present. Lorraine sits on the steps, calling Maya while watching the stream of humanity that somehow never includes space for inconvenient compassion. So what's the verdict? Maya asks. Voluntary departure by 6 p.m. or forced deportation with 5-year ban from Korea. Girl, that's not a choice. That's bureaucratic violence with paperwork. Maya, what if I don't go? The pause stretches long enough for Lorraine to hear her sister calculating the implications. What do you mean, don't go? I mean, what if I stay? What if I let them deport me, but document every step? Show the world what happens when a government punishes foreign nationals for showing compassion to their citizens. Lorraine Elizabeth Matthews, that is the most beautifully insane thing you've ever suggested. Also probably illegal in ways that could destroy your future. What future? I go back to Chicago, design museum exhibits that make visitors feel good about culture while real people suffer on the streets? I've seen what's possible when corporations choose dignity over profit. I can't unsee that. Her phone buzzes with incoming call from Jun Seok. Maya, I have to go. But think about this. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is force the system to reveal its true priorities in public. Jun Seok. She answers the second call. Where are you? So Min said the immigration hearing was this morning. Immigration office steps. I have until 6 p.m. to leave voluntarily, or they force me out with a 5-year ban. There's a third option. His voice carries the careful control of someone who's spent the morning making impossible decisions. Marry me. The words land like physical impact. What? Marry me. Not for love, not for media, not for corporate strategy. Marry me because it's the only legal mechanism that lets you stay in Korea to finish what we started. Lorraine stares at the concrete steps, processing the magnitude of what he's suggesting. Marriage as immigration strategy. Love as legal loophole. Partnership redefined by visa requirements rather than emotional connection. Jun Seok, that's practical, strategic, and completely authentic to who we've become together. A proposal delivered like a business plan, by a man who's learned that authentic human connection sometimes requires accepting that romance and reality operate by different rules. Where are you now? Conference room 47, Hansung Tower. With a marriage license, 2 witnesses, and a translator who can make this legal before 6 p.m. And as Lorraine sits on the immigration office steps, watching Seoul's relentless efficiency process human lives into administrative categories, she realizes that the most radical act of love might be choosing to build something permanent in a world determined to make authentic connection temporary. I'll be there in 30 minutes, she says. But we're doing this my way. Which way is that? Transparently, publicly, with full documentation of what it takes to protect human dignity in a system designed to crush it. Because if they're going to save their mission by getting married, the whole world deserves to witness what love looks like when it's willing to fight bureaucracy for the right to keep caring about strangers. Hansung Tower's executive conference room transforms into Seoul's most expensive wedding venue at 4:47 p.m., 13 minutes before immigration deadline, with Father Park conducting the ceremony, and So Min live streaming to an audience of 400,000 viewers who clicked expecting corporate drama and found something resembling a love story instead. Do you, Han Jun-seok, take Lorraine Elizabeth Matthews to be your lawfully wedded wife, in partnership for the work you've begun together, with commitment to building dignity in corporate Korea and beyond? Father Park has amended traditional Korean wedding vows to reflect the reality of what's happening. Two people choosing legal partnership to protect a mission that matters more than conventional romance. I do, Jun-seok says, his voice carrying the weight of someone who understands exactly what he's promising. Do you, Lorraine Elizabeth Matthews, take Han Jun-seok to be your lawfully wedded husband, with commitment to continuing the work of human dignity, even when institutional powers try to separate or silence you? Through the conference room windows, Seoul spreads below them like a city-sized metaphor for everything they're fighting against. Beautiful, powerful, and systematically indifferent to the people who need compassion most. I do, Lorraine says, and means it in ways that have nothing to do with romance and everything to do with revolution. Then, by the authority invested in me by Seoul Metropolitan Government, and in witness of this live-streamed audience, I pronounce you husband and wife, partners in life and mission. Father Park's smile carries decades of wisdom about the different forms that love can take. You may kiss if you choose to, or simply shake hands in acknowledgement of the work ahead. They choose the handshake, firm and formal, a business agreement with the legal weight of marriage and the emotional complexity of two people who've discovered that saving the world sometimes requires redefining everything you thought you knew about commitment. The livestream chat explodes with reactions in 17 languages, but Lorraine focuses on So Min's tablet, watching real-time immigration status updates. Spousal visa application automatically approved. Deportation order rescinded. Mrs. Han Lorraine Matthews cleared for indefinite residence in Republic of Korea. Mrs. Han Lorraine Matthews. The name sits strangely, like wearing clothes that belong to someone else's life. So what happens now? She asked Jun-seok, as conference room staff clear away the impromptu wedding setup. Now, we find out if we can build something permanent together, or if we just signed legal documents to protect something that was always temporary. The honesty of his response cuts through any fairy tale expectations. This isn't about happily ever after. It's about whether two people who care about the same mission can navigate the complexity of legal partnership without destroying the authentic connection that brought them together. There's something else, Father Park says, pulling out his own tablet. The live stream generated $47,000 in donations to Hope Shelter in the past hour. International media is calling this the first humanitarian marriage in corporate history. 3 other Korean companies have announced their own dignity-centered initiatives. We accidentally created a movement, Lorraine says, scrolling through news coverage that frames their marriage as everything from desperate publicity stunt to revolutionary partnership model. We created proof that authentic connection can survive systematic opposition, Jun-seok corrects. The question now is whether we can survive the attention that proof generates. That evening, they drive to Hope Shelter not as CEO and consultant, but as husband and wife committed to testing whether their legal partnership can support the emotional weight of the work they've chosen. The mobile shower units are serving the evening shift, steady streams of people accessing dignity services that exist, because 2 strangers chose to see each other as human. There's something I need to tell you, Lorraine says as they park outside the shelter. I've been documenting everything. Every conversation, every meeting, every moment of this process. I'm writing it all down. For what purpose? Because if this works, if we actually transform how Korean corporations think about human dignity, people need to understand how it happened. The messy reality, not the sanitized version that'll appear in business school case studies. Jun-seok considers this, watching shelter residents move through their evening routines with the careful dignity of people who've learned to protect their humanity, even in systems designed to strip it away. And if it doesn't work? If we fail? Or if the marriage destroys what we were building? Then people need to understand that too. Why authentic connection is so threatening to institutional power, and what it costs to try protecting it. They enter the shelter as husband and wife, but more importantly, as partners committed to discovering whether love, redefined as shared mission rather than romantic sentiment, can survive the brutal realities of trying to change systems that profit from human suffering. The test isn't whether they'll stay married. The test is whether they'll stay human while building something that matters enough to fight for, even when fighting means risking everything they've learned to value about each other. The first fight happens 3 weeks into their marriage, in the Hope Shelter kitchen at 11 p.m., over a budget spreadsheet that represents 200,000 people's access to dignity services and the philosophical difference between Korean corporate hierarchy and American directness. You can't just override the board's spending recommendations, Kyungrae says, his voice carrying the careful control of someone managing frustration with established protocols. Director Kang is looking for any excuse to challenge the Dignity Initiative's funding. I can't just let people freeze while we navigate corporate politics, Lorraine responds, her words sharpened by 3 weeks of watching bureaucracy slow-motion strangle urgent human needs. Those mobile units serve 300 people daily. Delaying expansion by 2 months means 18,000 people don't access showers, laundry, job counseling. The numbers hang between them like weapons. They're arguing about implementation strategy, but underneath flows the deeper tension of two people who chose legal partnership to protect a mission, now discovering that shared goals don't automatically create compatible working styles. Lorraine, I understand the urgency. But if we push too hard, too fast, the board will use our impatience as evidence that American approaches don't fit Korean corporate culture. Kyungrae, I understand the politics. But if we move too slow, too carefully, we become another corporate social responsibility program that generates good publicity while changing nothing meaningful. Father Park enters the kitchen carrying 3 cups of tea and the expression of someone who's mediated conflicts between idealists before. May I suggest that you're both right, which means you're both wrong. They turn to him with the synchronized irritation of partners who don't want their argument interrupted by wisdom. You're right that Korean corporate culture requires patience, process, respect for hierarchy, he says to Kyungrae. You're right that American directness cuts through bureaucratic delays that cost human lives, he says to Lorraine. You're wrong if you think this has to be either or instead of both and. He sets the teacups on the metal prep table like placing chess pieces. What if the real question isn't whether to move fast or slow, but how to move strategically? How to use Korean process to achieve American urgency? Lorraine stares at the spreadsheet, seeing 3 weeks of 12-hour days condensed into line items that represent human dignity measured in quarterly budgets. What does strategic movement look like? It looks like understanding that you're not just implementing a program, Father Park says. You're training an entire corporate structure to see homeless people as human beings worth systematic investment. That training takes time, but it also takes consistent pressure. Kyungrae begins pacing, his mind clearly working through possibilities. Phased expansion. We demonstrate success with current mobile units, document measurable outcomes, then use those results to justify accelerated timeline for Phase 2. And if the board still moves too slowly, then we make strategic visibility, international media attention on Korean innovation in corporate social responsibility. Make delay politically expensive while making progress politically rewarding. They work until 2 a.m., rebuilding their expansion timeline to balance urgent human needs with sustainable corporate change. By dawn, they've created something neither of them could have designed alone, a strategy that honors Korean protocols while maintaining American urgency. I owe you an apology, Lorraine says as they walk to their car through empty Seoul streets. I've been treating this marriage like a visa strategy that lets me do American activism on Korean soil. And I owe you one too, Kyungrae replies. I've been treating it like a Korean corporate merger that gives me cover for decisions that feel emotionally right, but politically dangerous. So what is it actually? They stop at a red light, Seoul quiet around them except for the distant hum of a city that never completely sleeps. It's two people learning to build something that requires both of their perspectives, even when those perspectives create conflict. That sounds harder than traditional marriage. Traditional marriage doesn't usually involve transforming entire corporate cultures, while the international media documents your progress. The light changes, and they continue driving through their adopted city, not as CEO and activist, not as Korean and American, but as partners learning that authentic human connection includes the right to disagree about methods while remaining committed to shared outcomes. 3 months later, their strategic approach will result in the fastest expansion of corporate-funded homeless services in Korean history. But tonight, it's just 2 people choosing to forgive each other for having different ideas about how to love a world that needs changing. And perhaps that's the most revolutionary thing of all. Marriage as a laboratory for learning how different forms of caring can coexist, argue, and ultimately create something more powerful than either could achieve alone. 6 months after their immigration deadline wedding, Lorraine discovers Jun Seok in the Hope Shelter kitchen at 5:30 a.m., chopping vegetables with the methodical precision of someone who's been doing this for hours. No cameras, no media, no corporate messaging. Just Korea's most powerful CEO preparing breakfast for 200 homeless individuals because Tuesday morning soup service has become part of his routine. "How long have you been doing this?" she asks, tying on an apron and falling into rhythm beside him. "Since the week after we got married. I needed to understand whether the work felt authentic when no one was documenting it for public consumption." The kitchen smells like friendship and industrial-grade compassion. Around them, shelter staff move with practiced efficiency, preparing to feed Seoul's invisible population, while the city wakes up to another day of strategic ignorance about who sleeps outdoors when winter temperatures drop below 0. And does it feel authentic? Jun Seok pauses in his chopping, considering the question with the same focus he'd once applied to quarterly earnings reports. "The first morning, I felt like I was performing social responsibility for an audience of my own guilt. Now it just feels like Tuesday." Mrs. Kim enters the kitchen carrying empty containers from yesterday's mobile unit service, greeting them both with the comfortable familiarity of someone who's stopped being surprised by the sight of billionaire CEOs in hairnets. "Mr. and Mrs. Han," she says in careful English, "mobile showers served 89 people yesterday, laundry service 67 loads, job counseling 23 appointments scheduled for next week. Numbers that represent dignity restored, one interaction at a time." Lorraine has learned to read Korean bureaucratic reports like poetry. Every statistic is someone's story of accessing basic humanity in a system designed to make them disappear. "Mrs. Kim, how many regular volunteers do we have now?" 47 from local community, 12 from other Korean companies, 3 from international businesses. Also, new volunteer called yesterday, Director Kang. Lorraine's knife pauses mid-chop. "Director Kang wants to volunteer here?" He said he wants to understand what happens at ground level before next board meeting about program expansion. The irony is delicious. The man who'd tried to destroy their initiative through corporate warfare now voluntarily entering the space where authentic human connection actually occurs. Either he's planning sabotage, or he's genuinely curious about whether dignity services produce measurable community value. When is he scheduled to come? This morning, 7 a.m. breakfast service. At exactly 7 a.m., Director Kang appears in the shelter dining room wearing clothes that cost more than most people's monthly rent, but also carrying himself with the careful humility of someone entering unfamiliar territory. He observes for 20 minutes without speaking, watching the interaction between volunteers and residents with the analytical attention of someone building mental spreadsheets. "Mr. Director," Father Park approaches with diplomatic respect. "Would you like to help serve breakfast? Or would you prefer to observe this morning?" "I'd like to help," Kang says, accepting an apron with the same formality he'd use for signing international contracts. "But I should mention that I have no experience with this kind of work." For the next hour, Lorraine watches Director Kang ladle soup with the mechanical precision of someone learning unfamiliar skills while trying to maintain dignity in front of corporate rivals. But something shifts when Mrs. Park, an elderly shelter resident, thanks him in Korean with the genuine warmth of someone appreciating help, regardless of its source. She says I remind her of her son, Kang tells Father Park quietly. Her son, who became successful but forgot to visit her before she lost her apartment. What did you tell her? That successful sons sometimes have to remember how to see their mothers. After breakfast service ends, Director Kang approaches Lorraine and Jun Seok with an expression that looks remarkably like respect tempered by confusion. I came here expecting to find evidence that this initiative wastes corporate resources on unsolvable social problems, he says. Instead, I find systematic efficiency applied to human dignity with measurable results and community impact. Does that change your opposition to program expansion? It changes my understanding of what we're actually expanding. Kang removes his apron, folding it with the same care he'd use for important documents. The question isn't whether Hanseong can afford to fund dignity services. The question is whether we can afford the reputational and community costs of not funding them. As he prepares to leave, Director Kang pauses at the shelter entrance. Mrs. Han, may I ask you something personal? Of course. When you gave your coat to the homeless man in the rain, did you know you were starting a revolution? Lorraine considers the question, remembering that night when Seoul felt like the end of the world and helping a stranger felt like the only thing that mattered. I knew I was doing what my mother taught me to do when someone looks cold and hungry. I didn't know that would threaten an entire corporate structure. It didn't threaten the structure, Director Kang says. It revealed that the structure was already failing, and we were too invested in quarterly profits to notice. 6 months after their marriage, 3 months after their first major fight, and 1 breakfast service after Director Kang's conversion to human dignity, Lorraine and Jun Seok have built something that no longer needs cameras or media attention to justify its existence. They've created proof that authentic human connection can survive corporate politics, cultural differences, immigration warfare, and the international media's obsession with turning every genuine moment into public spectacle. And perhaps most importantly, they've demonstrated that love, redefined as shared commitment to building dignity in systems designed to destroy it, can transform not just individual lives, but entire approaches to what business success actually means. 1 year after the rain-soaked night that changed everything, Hanseong Group's annual shareholders meeting features an agenda item that would have been unthinkable before Lorraine Matthews shared kimbap with a stranger. Dignity Services Division Annual Report and 5-year expansion plan. The conference room holds 400 shareholders, representing $47 billion in invested capital, who've gathered to evaluate whether corporate social responsibility generates sustainable returns or constitutes elaborate charity disguised as business strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, Jun Seok addresses the assembly from a podium that once symbolized pure profit maximization. 12 months ago, Hanseong Group launched the Dignity Initiative with a simple premise that treating human beings with systematic respect creates stronger communities, which generate more sustainable business environments. On the screen behind him, data flows like evidence in a trial where human worth stands defendant against quarterly earnings expectations. 47,000 people served through mobile dignity units, 12,000 individuals connected to employment opportunities, 89% of participants maintaining stable housing 6 months post-intervention. The numbers speak to operational efficiency, continues Director Kang, who now manages the Dignity Services Division with the same strategic focus he once applied to cost-cutting measures. But the real story is market positioning. Hanseong Group is now internationally recognized as the Korean corporation leading Asia-Pacific development in corporate social responsibility. Shareholder Kim raises his hand. Director Kang, what's the actual cost-benefit analysis? How do we measure return on investment for dignity services? Excellent question, Lorraine says, standing from her seat in the audience. As Chief Experience Officer, she's learned to translate human dignity into corporate language without losing the substance of what makes dignity worth protecting. Traditional ROI calculations miss 73% of the value generated by dignity services because they don't account for community stability, employee retention, brand loyalty, and regulatory relationship improvement. She clicks to a presentation she's refined over hundreds of corporate meetings, economic models that demonstrate how systematic investment in human dignity creates measurable business advantages, from reduced security costs to increased consumer trust to preferential treatment in government contract bidding. Hanseong developments in communities where we provide dignity services experience 34% lower crime rates, 28% higher property values, and 41% increased foot traffic to our retail locations, she continues. Dignity isn't charity, It's infrastructure investment that generates returns across multiple business sectors. Shareholder Park leans forward with the sharp interest of someone who's spent decades evaluating business opportunities. Mrs. Han, are you suggesting that helping homeless people is profitable? I'm suggesting that creating communities where people can maintain dignity and economic stability generates economic value for everyone in those communities, including the corporations that operate there. The questions continue for 2 hours. Implementation costs, scalability challenges, regulatory compliance, competitive advantages. Each query receives detailed responses supported by data that proves human dignity and corporate success aren't opposing forces. They're complementary strategies for building sustainable business environments. The motion to approve 5-year expansion of Dignity Services Division, announces the board secretary, passes with 89% shareholder approval. After the meeting, Lorraine and Jun Seok walk through Seoul's streets toward Hope Shelter, past the neon advertisements and glass towers that represent the old version of Korean corporate power. Beautiful, profitable, and completely disconnected from the human costs of building beautiful, profitable things. Do you think we've actually changed anything? Lorraine asks, watching the evening commute flow around them like a river of people returning to lives shaped by corporate decisions they'll never directly influence. We've changed everything we could reach, Jun Seok replies. The question now is whether the changes we've made will spread to systems we can't directly touch. And if they don't, then we keep building what we can build, one decision at a time, until systematic dignity becomes so obviously successful that other corporations choose to compete with our model rather than oppose it. At Hope Shelter, the evening meal service proceeds with the efficient compassion that's become their signature. 200 people fed, 89 individuals scheduled for tomorrow's job counseling, 67 referred to transitional housing programs, 34 connected to healthcare services. Numbers that represent human lives stabilized by the radical idea that corporate profits and community dignity can coexist when businesses choose to measure success by more than quarterly earnings. Mrs. Kim wants to thank you both. Father Park approaches with the elderly woman who'd been among the shelter's first mobile shower users. She started working at Hanseong retail location last month. First steady employment in 3 years. Mrs. Kim speaks in Korean, her words carrying the weight of someone whose life has been transformed by systematic investment in her dignity as a human being. Father Park translates. She says she still can't believe that the company that gave her a job is the same company whose CEO she met when he was pretending to be homeless. What does she think about that? Lorraine asks. Father Park listens to Mrs. Kim's extended response, then smiles. She says it proves that sometimes powerful people need to become powerless before they can understand how to use power wisely. And she says she's grateful that you didn't let him stay comfortable with what he thought he knew about the world. As they prepare to leave, Jun Seok and Lorraine stand in the Hope Shelter courtyard, where their unlikely partnership began with shared concern for displaced families facing bulldozers and eviction orders. 18 months ago, he was a billionaire CEO who'd never had an authentic conversation with someone who didn't want something from him. She was a museum designer documenting authentic human spaces while searching for connections that felt real rather than performed. Tonight, they're partners who've learned that love, redefined as shared commitment to building dignity in systems designed to destroy it, can survive corporate politics, cultural differences, immigration warfare, media manipulation, and the daily challenge of transforming institutional power into something that serves human flourishing. They've created proof that authentic human connection not only can change individual lives, but can reshape entire corporations, influence government policy, and demonstrate that business success and community dignity aren't opposing forces. Most importantly, they've shown that sometimes the most revolutionary thing two people can do is choose to keep seeing each other as human beings worth building something beautiful with, even when the whole world is watching and judging every decision they make together. 2 years after a rain-soaked encounter that began with shared kimbap and evolved into revolutionizing Korean corporate social responsibility, Lorraine and Jun Seok stand before the United Nations Corporate Responsibility Council, presenting the Seoul model to business leaders from 47 countries who've gathered to understand how authentic human dignity can scale from individual moments to institutional transformation. The Soul model begins with a simple premise. Lorraine addresses the assembly, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who spent 2 years proving that radical ideas can survive bureaucratic implementation. Corporate social responsibility becomes effective when it stops being about charity and starts being about systematic infrastructure for human dignity. Behind her, screens display data that would have been fantasy 2 years ago. 127,000 individuals served through Hanseong's Dignity Services Division. 89% employment retention rate for program participants. $2.4 billion in economic impact generated through community stabilization initiatives. 12 Korean companies implementing similar programs. International partnerships in 9 countries. But numbers tell only part of the story. Jun Seok continues from the co-presenter podium. The real transformation happens when corporations discover that investing in human dignity isn't cost-centered charity, but competitive advantage infrastructure. The delegation from Germany raises questions about scalability. Representatives from Brazil want implementation timelines. The Canadian Corporate Council asks about regulatory frameworks that support dignity-centered business practices. Each question receives detailed responses built from 2 years of learning how to translate individual compassion into systematic change, how to survive media scrutiny while building something authentic, and how to maintain human connection while navigating corporate politics that treat human dignity as negotiable luxury rather than operational necessity. Mrs. Han, the delegation leader from Japan, addresses Lorraine directly. Your personal story has become international symbol of cross-cultural cooperation. Do you think the Soul model requires personal sacrifice of the kind you and Mr. Han experienced? It's the question that cuts to the heart of everything, whether systematic change requires individuals to risk everything, or whether there are safer paths to transforming how institutions treat human dignity. The Soul model requires institutional courage, Lorraine responds carefully. Sometimes that courage comes from personal crisis that forces authentic decisions. Sometimes it comes from strategic leadership that chooses vulnerability over safety, because the data proves that human-centered approaches generate superior long-term results. What we've learned, Jun Seok adds, is that authentic human connection doesn't scale through corporate mandate or policy requirement. It scales through demonstration, proving that treating people with systematic dignity creates measurable value that traditional business models can't generate. The presentations continue for 3 hours, but the real work happens afterward, in smaller meetings where corporate leaders ask practical questions about implementation costs, regulatory challenges, and board approval strategies. The hardest part isn't convincing executives that dignity services work, Lorraine explains to the CEO of a major European retail chain. The hardest part is maintaining authentic commitment when media attention fades and quarterly pressure returns. How do you maintain that commitment? By building systems that make dignity profitable rather than expensive. When human-centered approaches generate better results than traditional methods, the business case maintains itself. That evening, as Seoul's lights create patterns of possibility across the Han River, Lorraine and Jun Seok walk through the city where their unlikely partnership transformed from individual moment to institutional movement. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if it had been raining harder that night? Lorraine asks, remembering the exact weight of her coat as she'd offered it to a stranger who turned out to be the person who could help her change everything. I wonder what would have happened if you'd walked past like everyone else, Jun Seok replies. If I'd completed my homeless experiment without ever experiencing what it felt like to be truly seen by another human being, would you still be the same CEO? I'd still be successful by traditional metrics, but I wouldn't understand that success without human dignity isn't actually success. It's just elaborate resource accumulation that leaves everyone poorer in the ways that matter most. 2 years, countless corporate battles, 1 immigration deadline wedding, and 127,000 lives touched by systematic investment in human dignity later, they've created something unprecedented. Proof that love, redefined as shared commitment to building systems that honor human worth, can transform not just individual relationships, but entire approaches to how business interacts with community need. The Soul model is spreading to corporations across Asia, Europe, and North America. carried by leaders who understand that authentic human connection isn't just morally necessary, but strategically superior to models built on systematic indifference to human suffering. And it all began with a woman who stopped in the rain to ask a stranger if he'd eaten that day, not knowing she was offering more than food. She was offering the radical possibility that seeing each other as human beings might be the most powerful force for changing the world. Year closing. 3 years have passed since Lorraine Matthews shared her last kimbap with a man she thought was homeless, not knowing she was feeding the CEO who would help her prove that authentic human dignity can survive and transform even the most powerful corporate systems in the world. The Hope Shelter now operates from a permanent building funded through Hanseong Group's Dignity Services Division, serving as headquarters for what international media has dubbed the Korean Corporate Responsibility Revolution. Mobile dignity units operate in 47 cities across 12 countries. The waiting list for Seoul model implementation partnerships extends 18 months into the future. But the real measure of success isn't in the numbers, impressive as they are. It's in the fact that treating human beings with systematic respect has become competitive advantage rather than charitable obligation. It's in watching other corporations choose dignity-centered approaches because the data proves they generate superior results. It's in knowing that individual moments of authentic connection can scale into institutional transformation when the right people choose to risk everything to protect what matters most. Lorraine and Junseok's marriage, born from immigration desperation and corporate necessity, has evolved into something neither traditional romance nor business partnership adequately describes. They've become partners in the truest sense. Two people who discovered that building something larger than themselves requires both of their perspectives, even when those perspectives create productive tension that pushes them toward solutions neither could reach alone. "Do you think we changed the world?" Lorraine asks one evening, as they walk through Seoul's streets, past the glass towers and neon advertisements that once represented pure corporate power, now increasingly housing companies that compete to demonstrate authentic commitment to human flourishing. "We changed the part of the world we could reach," Junseok replies. "The rest is up to everyone else who chooses to see strangers as human beings worth stopping for, worth sharing food with, worth building something beautiful with." The Seoul model continues expanding, carried by business leaders who understand that authentic human connection isn't just morally necessary, but strategically superior to systems built on indifference to human dignity. Each implementation brings new challenges, new opportunities to prove that seeing each other as human beings creates value that can't be measured in quarterly reports, but transforms everything those reports claim to represent. And somewhere in Seoul tonight, in cities across Asia, Europe, and North America, in boardrooms where executives choose vulnerability over safety, and in shelters where dignity services restore hope, one interaction at a time, the ripple effects continue spreading outward from a simple moment when a stranger offered her coat to someone she thought might be cold. Because sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is stop in the rain to ask if someone has eaten today, not knowing that your willingness to see them as human might be exactly what the world needs to remember that we're all connected, we all matter, and we all have the power to transform systems that seem too big to change, one authentic moment of caring at a time. The story began with the last kimbap. It continues with every choice to treat human dignity as infrastructure rather than luxury, every decision to build bridges instead of walls, every moment when someone chooses to see a stranger and think, "You matter, you're worth stopping for," and together we might just build something beautiful enough to change everything.